If you're unfamiliar with the term woods carry, what it means is carrying a firearm outside for defensive use against wild animals, something like a brown bear, a black bear, a cougar, or wild hogs, that sort of thing. Generally we're talking handguns, just because they're easier to carry. Is the largest animal you guys are going to face something like a coyote or a deer? Then you don't need a whole lot. If the largest animal is something like black bears, you need to realize you might have to face off with something like a 400-pound, 500-pound black bear. Maybe you have grizzlies, which get a little bigger than black bears and are notoriously harder to handle. Maybe you've got wild hogs. Wild hogs are definitely harder than a deer to take down. They get big, they're heavy-set, tough, thick-skinned, heavy-boned animals that are harder to take down than most deer. If you have something like a moose or elk in your area, rutting moose is a serious threat, by the way, for people out in the woods. They're dangerous critters. I know several people who have had bad run-ins with a rutting moose. They get very dangerous and aggressive during the rut. What's the largest animal in your area? So here, the largest animal is mid-sized black bears, around the 300-pound or so mark. Now, for something up to that size, smaller to mid-sized black bears, even into the most hogs, a 9mm is going to be your ticket. It's the most common out there, so you got a lot of options. It's great for ammo selection. There's plenty of choices out there. Cheaper ammo generally just because it's more common. And you probably, if you have a pistol, you probably already have a 9mm. So great, you can put that on your side and carry it, and it should handle anything you're probably going to encounter for most of North America. The 9mm 9x19 or 9mm Luger has about 350 foot-pounds of energy in most loads. You get the plus P ammo, plus P stands for higher pressure rating, and it's going to have 400 or just a little over 400 foot-pounds of energy in a standard handgun. Now, the standard 9mm round is this round-nosed, kind of skinny, almost pointed round nose on the bullet. And that's either in a 124 or in a 124 or a 147 grain bullet. Don't use it. Don't use the rounded nose, kind of pointy rounded nosed bullets. They're horrible. They're a bad choice. They're not going to penetrate well because they tend to deflect and ricochet and go off center. They also don't cause a good wound. They cause a very poor wound channel. If you can get something like a truncated round, now this isn't not a 9mm, this is a 10mm automatic, but this bullet profile flat on the tip, that's a truncated round. That bullet's going to go a lot straighter. It's not going to ricochet or tumble much like the Full Metal Jacket round-nosed ones do. It's going to go straighter, which means it's going to go deeper and further on average every shot. It's also going to create a better wound. If I fire the 9mm round-nosed bullets into a target, it makes kind of a fuzzy little edged hole. If I fire this flat-nosed bullet, that flat nose cuts the paper on my paper target into a nice clean hole. That's a good illustration of what it does in soft tissues on an animal. It does the same thing. The 9mm punctures and more separates tissues and just goes in between them when it's in the round-nosed bullet. You get it in the flat-nosed bullets, and it's going to more cut cleanly through anything that it's going through. It's going to cause more vascular damage, which is bleeding out, and that's a big way to help stop an animal. Still, though, you can't rely on bleeding out to take out an animal. You have to, if you have a chance, you have to aim for major bone structure, something like a shoulder. You take out a shoulder, not many creatures can walk on a shoulder. I mean, a wild hog, hogs can't walk on one shoulder. Deer can kind of walk if one of their shoulders is out. A bear can a little bit, but they're going to fall and fumble at least for a bit. But a wild hog, you take out one shoulder and they're down even if they're not dead. Another great spot is the central nervous system, the spine or the brain. You get a bullet anywhere in the spine or the brain and they're done. Right, they're just done. They're small targets, so hard to hit. For the most part, upper chest will take care of anything you need. Right between the armpits, that's the sweet spot that you're usually trying to hit. Now, we can go with the hollow point, 9mm hollow point defensive loads. They're better now than they've ever been. They're all going to penetrate between 12 and 15 inches somewhere. It depends on the individual bullet and whether or not if you strike something like a bone. It's not going to penetrate as much if you go through the leg bone or the shoulder bone first. But the 9mm hollow points will penetrate 12 to 15 inches, which is about that much. I'm pretty skinny. It's not quite all the way across my shoulders. But that's deep enough for most situations to get through the rib cage and muscle tissue, even through some of the shoulder, and on into the lungs and heart of an animal, which is quite often your best spot to shoot them, lungs and heart area. Upper chest between the armpits. So for most use in 9mm, a hollow point will do it for woods carry. I don't have a problem using the truncated personally. In fact, I recommend a truncated round generally much more. They're often a little more expensive, and I only know one company that actually sells loaded ammo in a truncated round, and that's Buffalo Bore, the Buffalo Bore 9mm heavy outdoorsman ammo. It's a plus P rated, which is extra pressure. It's the hottest load 9mm you can find and the most powerful, and it will penetrate at least 3 feet into soft tissue if it doesn't strike a bone. Now, that's expensive ammo. You're probably going to pay around $2 a bullet loaded for it. And it's hard to find. You got to order it online. It's slow shipping and it takes a while. And honestly, the company doesn't have the greatest customer service. But they do have some of the greatest bullets for that type of use. They have the heaviest and hottest loaded ammunition. They're also the only company that has 9mm truncated bullets. They're proprietary. They mold them and make them themselves, and I've never been able to find any of them anywhere else available for reloading your own even. So the 9mm with its 350 to 400 foot-pounds of energy is a great option for woods carry for almost anywhere you're going to be at. Anything bigger, and instead of the 9mm, my little 9mm here, I would go with the 10mm auto. This is my Glock 20, which is my standard everyday carry, whether I'm out in the woods or out in the city. I hate the city. I don't go there often at all. And my wife carries a 9. It just fits her hand better. But I wouldn't have a problem carrying, it's a little small for my hand, but the bullet itself I don't have a problem with, which is why I let my wife carry it. If you're in an area where there's anything bigger, something like your larger bears, maybe an elk or a moose, the smallest you should go with is the 10mm auto with the hottest, heaviest, hardest hitting ammo you can get. Something like the Buffalo Bore Heavy Outdoorsman. 220 grain bullet going about 1,200 feet per second, 1,250 feet per second out of my Glock. Which, for a pistol, that's insane. That's really hot for a pistol. That's over twice what some of the 9mm rounds are, and way beyond where most 40 Smith & Wessons are. Honestly, way beyond where most 10mm are, because most 10mm are loaded down. But if you're in an area where there are larger animals, you can go with, I would recommend going with the 10mm auto as a starting point. Maybe something like the 41 Magnum or the 44 Magnum even. That'd be a fine choice. I personally prefer my semi-autos because I carry them as an everyday carry, and it's a more multi-purpose defense tool. But if you got bigger animals, if I wanted to potentially take down a moose, I'm going to carry the heaviest, hardest bullet in something like a 44 Magnum that I can. For most of the country, however, the 10mm would be a fine bigger option. The 9mm is your best, most adequate option. In fact, I'm planning a hog hunting trip next summer down in Texas. I'm going to carry my 9mm little bitty, almost compact pistol. And I'm going to kill a couple. It's going to be great. The 9mm, as far as penetration, well, it penetrated well enough to kill this hog. And it penetrated well enough to kill this hog too. Actually, this one blew off the back of his skull, destroyed the back of the jaw. Yeah, that was pretty rough. This one, bullet went in towards the shoulder, skipped through the inside of the jaw, went in just below the eye socket, blew the front of the brain apart, blew the nasal cavity apart, came out the other side of the jaw down here. And that was with my 9mm truncated rounds. I got about 2 feet of penetration without hitting bone through the muscle. Then it blew apart the whole back of the skull and came out the bottom of the skull. Okay, it works. It worked. That was a great example of how the 9mm will do it. You just got to have decent bullets. Truncated rounds, if you want to be able to make a shot on a poor angle like I did on that last one and still get the job done. Hollow points will work, but with the hollow points, you got to go for the upper torso, upper chest area between the armpits. 9mm will work for woods carry. It's not a bad option for almost everybody in the country. Alright, well, thanks for watching Michigan Sharpshooters. I hope you got something out of this. We'll talk next time. Be sure to like this video and watch another one if it looks interesting. Thanks. Bye.
Oh no, a bear! Ah!